sales strategies with a couple of folks. So Taylor Nilsson, our on-premise market manager, is going to visit with Jeff Good. Jeff is one of our salespeople across the country. He's been with us for 7 years now. 7 years. He resides in the thriving metropolis of Kalida, Ohio. Pick that one out on a map. It's in northwest Ohio. Jeff traverses our Great Lakes region, and for us, that's Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. He has a big chunk of that. Jeff sold in Florida before moving to Michigan and now Ohio. So he's been around the eastern part of the United States and has many different experiences. Jeff is a graduate of the Ohio State University, who just got beat by Oregon on Saturday. Sorry, Jeff. Lawyer. So without further ado, please welcome Taylor Nilsson and Jeff Good.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, good morning. I like to start out all my sessions with a confession or something true. And the fact of the matter is that I have never sold Daktronics displays out in the field. My background at Daktronics was in customer service. I was a customer service department manager for part of the 13 years that I was in customer service. I did sell service agreements quite a bit in customer service. That was my first job here at Daktronics. But I've never driven a Durango. I've never pulled a demo trailer. I've never requested a quote. And so as I was preparing for this session on sales strategies, I reflected on the fact that some of these concepts we've talked about in previous sales expos. So if you were here virtually last year, or if you were here in person 2 years ago, you may have heard a few of these concepts before. And I said, I would like to make this a little bit more real for our audience, and I would like to bring in some different perspectives. And so I called my good friend Jeff Good and said, Jeff, how would you like to come to South Dakota for Sales Expo? And as a good friend, he said, absolutely, I'd love to help out. So Jeff's going to be helping with the presentation today. We're going to throw back and forth between the slides. We have never done this before.
Yeah,
so bear with us as we go through the transitions. But
perfect.
It's going to go great.
I think you're kicking us off.
I am kicking it off.
All right.
So demos and upgrades, two of my favorite subjects. I really appreciated that Lynn basically talked a little bit about this. She touched on one of the subjects that I'm going to start out with. We're going to start with the topic of display upgrades, and it's possible to perceive display upgrades for existing customers as either an opportunity or a challenge. And I would submit that maybe it's both. I think it is both. If you look at the information that's out there on the internet about selling to existing customers, and thank you again, Lynn, for kicking this topic off, there's a wealth of information out there. There is a ton of data that shows that selling to existing customers is cheaper, it's easier, they're less price sensitive, all the things that Lynn already talked about. So not to overuse the term no-brainer, but it seems like it should be a no-brainer that we would want to be pounding the pavement trying to sell to our existing customers that already have some form of an electronic message center. Maybe that's aged out a bit, maybe it doesn't look as good as it once did, or maybe it's just older technology. Maybe as in the case of the lacrosse project at Wilderness Casino, they had content that they wanted to display that their existing product just didn't have the capability. It didn't have the tight enough pixel resolution to display the sophisticated messages that they wanted to display. So we should be all over this, right? But what I would say is that we run into a roadblock with customers. There's a lot of customers that own equipment and maybe they don't even see it anymore. They drive into work every day and they are not seeing what it really looks like. And the thing is that they may say that it's still working, but the fact of the matter is that we know that it's not really working, right? It's not saying what they want their sign to say about their business. It is saying something, but it might be saying something about their business that they don't like. So it's our job collectively to work with those customers, use our influence to talk to them and explain to them how a new sign and maybe a complete refresh of all of their branding could really do something for their business. So in the session today, we're going to talk a little bit about the basics of how to approach these customers that have existing product. And we're also going to talk about some different customer types and how to approach them differently, because we know that not all customers are made the same. Some are going to respond differently to different messaging. I love this. Lynn and I did not collaborate on our presentations, but we tend to have some of the same concepts, and I love that. She talked about action. I'm going to talk about action. Really, it starts by doing something. And I would suggest that if you're waiting for your customers to call you to talk to you about replacing an existing display, then that's doing nothing. That is not taking action. We need to be proactive and not reactive. So the first step would be make a list. And perhaps some of you guys already have your customer database in an electronic format. Perhaps you have an easy to manage list. Maybe it's in an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe it's in some other kind of an enterprise software. I would suggest that this list does need to be electronic. And I think Excel is an easy to use tool. But any of your customers that you think are targets for replacement, and I would say any of the customers in your area, your footprint, it doesn't necessarily have to be one of your customers. It could be any customer, any business out there with an aging electronic display is a target that should go on this list. Electronic is important. Why? I'll take a input. Why do you think the list should be electronic?
Send it out.
So you can send it out. So you can manage it, right? This needs to be a living document. We need to be noting when we've made contacts with these customers. If you are a manager at your sign company, the next step that I'm going to suggest is that you need to have a meeting with your team. And so that means that you need to have something to put in front of them. Maybe they're going to submit suggestions to you of customers that they think are targets in your community. And then you're going to follow up with them later, right? You're going to go back to that salesperson and say, hey, I have your name next to these sites, next to these accounts. You were supposed to follow up with them. How did those calls go, right? How did that visit go when you met with that customer to talk to them about their existing display? Now, last year I talked about this subject and upgrading, and I suggested this, that we should have a meeting, but I missed something last year. Why don't you invite your friendly Daktronics sales rep to be a part of that meeting with your team? Make them part of your strategy, your war council, to talk about how are you going to go out and attack these accounts that have existing displays.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. So I actually do these meetings quite a bit with regional accounts, national chains, stuff like that. We do a ton of banks, a ton of credit unions. Am I echoing a little bit?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, cool. Around Indiana in particular, and a few sign companies are members of a banking association there. And they do a ton of business with regional accounts. So my question to all of you would be, how much of your total business is from regional accounts or repeat customers? Probably a lot, right? Probably more than 50%, 70%. I would guess it's probably quite a bit. So that's the bulk of your opportunity. Are you actually proactively talking to them? Like, hey, look, is this message center actually doing what it should be doing for us? I would just encourage, kind of like what Taylor said, a quarterly meeting. I don't even think, even a semi-annual meeting. Can you just talk with them a couple of times a year and be like, look, are your logos still good? Are your awnings still good? Are your channel letters still good? Like, you want to change anything up? It's more than just a digital sign. It's about their whole marketing strategy of what they're trying to do. And if you even get one of those regional chains to say, actually, you know what? Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably not a good idea. Let's change it up. You can advise them then. You're not in a situation where they're putting it out to bid or something like that. So it's not just a sign. There's one more. There we go. Does their current display align with their marketing and brand image goals? Probably not, right? I think a lot of the times I might go on a demo with someone and we're talking to their owners. We're not really talking to a marketing-driven person. I think if we can get the marketing people involved in that, we can, really articulate how a digital sign will help them achieve their goals. And we touched on, or Lynn touched on, team selling. So selling from the ladder. techs can be a really good asset to your team. They're probably the ones with, going out to site fixing these old signs, however frequently it may be, once a month, once a week, whatever. I would just train them up a little bit and just say, hey, look, can you at least start the conversation with them? Go in, talk to someone like that. Be like, have you guys thought about replacing this? I'm coming out here like once a month, you're getting this service bill for a few $100 or whatever. Like, you're kind of just throwing money down the tubes, So I would really encourage to train up those techs. I know with my sign companies, I always tell them that, and we've seen some success. Like, the tech doesn't have to be some, great salesperson. All they got to do is just introduce the idea, and it'll help out a lot.
Can I make a shout out here?
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Brian last night at dinner about transitioning from the traditional installer role, technician role, hands-on type role into doing some additional selling work. And my comment to Brian was that customers instinctively trust the installers and the techs. They know the product inside and out. They tend to be no BS type of people that'll tell it to you straight. And so I really think that these technicians and your service department and your installers, I can't emphasize enough how much they are part of your selling team, and they should be trained to talk to your customers about what the opportunities are there. Your customers will trust them.
100%. So obviously this is just, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Do you really think that sign's doing a great job? Not really, at least I don't think so. So it goes back to really, how can we be proactive with these customers? In, ideal world, create a list of, it doesn't have to be every regional account you have, but pick out the 5 to 10, good ones that you do a lot of work for, and just talk with them. Be like, hey, look, is this, are your signs actually achieving what you want them to be achieving? You still happy with your logo, stuff like that? It's more than just, I always tell my sign company, it's more than just a digital sign, right? I know you're not selling a digital sign on every project for code, for a bunch of different reasons maybe, but if you can get one changeover, it's a huge thing. So you're taking it back from here.
I would say too that this, doing a throwback to one of my favorite topics, I've participated in sales expos for many, many years, back when I was in the customer service department. And one of the topics that I was always tapped to talk about as a service team member, and Amber's smiling because she's heard the presentation 10 times, is about selling service agreements to customers. And it's probably it's a very close second to my passion for this complete digital solutions thing that Daktronics is doing now. I'm a huge proponent of service agreements. It's a way to stay in touch with your customers over time. And these customers that have service agreements with you, I don't have the stats, I don't have the data to back this up, but I can guarantee you that customers that have a service agreement with you are going to be more likely to return to you when it's time to replace that display. If you haven't talked to your customer or been at their site in 5 years, and you walk in at year 9 or 10 and say, hey, let's talk about replacement, they don't know you anymore. In fact, the staff there has probably changed. So what are you doing on an ongoing, proactive, continuous basis to keep in touch with these customers? You don't have to use a service agreement to do that, but I would suggest that a service agreement is a way to get paid while you're doing that. So don't start talking about replacement in year 9 or 10. Have a relationship with them, be in contact, continuous engagement. So we're going to transition to the second topic here when it comes to display upgrades. We're going to talk a little bit about some customer perspectives. And this is also some content from Lynn's presentation last year where she talked about risk avoiders and advantage seekers. And there's a lot of different ways to break down the world. We know that there's a dichotomy out there of Coke drinkers and Pepsi drinkers. There's Packers fans, there's Vikings fans. There's a lot of different ways to separate the world into two groups. When it comes to sales, this is one of the most powerful ones, is to understand what kind of a customer you're dealing with. And it's not a true 50-50 split. No one is 100% of one or the other. But typically, customers are going to respond to messaging differently depending on who they are psychologically. So our first topic is going to be about our advantage seekers.
Yeah, so I get the fun ones. Visual revolution, so you see a bunch of crazy colors and stuff like that. I guess the story I would tell is, think of when you're watching the Super Bowl. Everyone pretty much watches the Super Bowl, right? And you have all the commercials, it's a big deal. how many of those commercials incite some kind of emotion or try to? Pretty much all of them, right? I mean, there's very few that are bland commercials. They're paying, millions and millions of dollars for these spots. They want them to create some kind of emotion. Do you think an old sign is doing that? Maybe in a negative way, probably not a positive way. So if they are, a forward thinker, a newer sign makes a lot of sense, right? I remember 36 millimeter displays and even slightly lower res than that. Now we're down to these, you saw the displays yesterday from 6 millimeter to 20, or really a 15.85 is almost the highest we go now, at least myself. And technology has changed so much. I mean, people want a brighter sign. They want to be able to display an ad or an image that does create some kind of emotion at their business to get them to come in. Tighter pixel pitches, we touched on it a little bit. I mean, these 6 millimeter and 8 millimeter displays create so much more, imagery. It's just a lot better than the old 36 millimeter monochromes and stuff like that. It's more persuasive, it can be more effective, creates a bigger emotional response. Cool factors, right? I touched on the Super Bowl ads, but I think that might actually be one of them. And look at the old Coke sign. Which one would you probably go in if a business had that on it, or if it had a new digital sign displaying that? You'd probably pick the one with the people. And again, that's just another old picture. I think that's a seatbelt. Is that what we
We
came
weren't
on?
sure. We settled on maybe it's a seat belt, but I was pretty confused, and the customers probably would be too.
And again, so there's a display. I don't even know what pixel pitch that would be. That's probably like an 8 millimeter or a 10 millimeter display would be my guess. But, which one would you pick if you were, a customer driving down the road? You'd obviously pick this one. In the DOS, I think you were going to touch on this DOS, right? You used to have to, this was before my time, so Taylor said he
Slightly before my time too. Come on now. Oh, God, Jeff.
Scheduling signs with DOS and stuff like that. I do remember dial-up internet. So I guess is their current user experience, is it up to date? Are they still using the old Venus 1500 or even, the prior versions of Venus before that? Does that align with their marketing goals? They're probably using Photoshop or Canva, some other kind of, image creating software that they probably can't really, at least easily get into, something like this. So obviously, this goes into a little more about the user experience and stuff like that. It's going to improve their life dramatically from going from Venus 1500 to Venus Control Suite. Just being able to drag and drop their images over after they create them, schedule them super easy now. It's probably going to save them, maybe 1 hour to 2 hours every time they're scheduling content. And over the course of a sign's up for 10 years plus, they're going to save themselves a lot of time. Oh, and here is Venus 1500. Well, there you go. And then the new stuff. And I believe this is you.
Yeah, one more comment about time. Jeff is right that the new user experience in Venus, and especially with the additional advancements that Adi talked about yesterday and showed you all in the product showcase, I'm a big believer in saving our customers time. As you get a little bit older, you start to realize it really truly is the most precious commodity. They aren't making any more of it, and we have to use it wisely. The ability to program a sign and schedule it more effectively and more efficiently is not just the only advantage to Venus, because Venus is cloud hosted, which means that your customers can control their sign from wherever they are. So put yourself in the shoes of one of your end customers. It's a community member of yours. He's married, he has kids. He has a couple franchise locations. He lives in a suburb. It's about a 25-minute drive when the traffic's good. It's an hour when the traffic's bad. Having the cloud-hosted Venus control to be able to change his content, change his messages on his sign from home and continue to spend time with his family and not have to drive to his store locations. What's more valuable than that? If you can tell that story to your customer and explain to them how you're going to save them time to spend with their family and to spend their weekends uninterrupted without having to go into the office or into their local business, that's huge. So get good at telling that story to your customer. have an anecdote about a customer that you were able to save them time, and your customers will buy from you. So we talked a little bit about advantage seekers, customers that are looking for what's new, what's bright, what's cutting edge. They have some tells. We know who they are because we talked a little bit yesterday about customers that talk about future-proofing. They want cutting edge, they want bigger, they want better. Those are customers that we can sell the sizzle to, right? We can show them what's cool, and they really respond to that. But we know that that's not every customer. Some customers are much more pragmatic, they're more risk adverse, and they're likely to have the sign that maybe looks like some of the pictures that we saw at the beginning of the presentation. That customer wants to drive things until they die. And originally, when I planned this presentation, I was going to take a picture of one of our engineers' cars that they owned for many, many years. And I will not tell you who it is, but the other Daktronics members here probably know who it is. Unfortunately, they did get rid of it a couple years ago, so I didn't get a picture of that terrific-looking Buick. But I did find another picture online of another car that looks like it's still on the road, looks like it's still roadworthy. That's saying something about the driver of that car, that they're very pragmatic and are driving it until it dies. And I would say that that's okay. I have no problem with that. The engineer that was driving that old Buick is one of the smartest guys I know. And so that's his personal preference. The car worked really well for him, and he kept it for as long as he could. That's in your personal life. That's some of your personal goods. I would suggest that there's other things that when you're running a business that just doesn't make sense to drive it until it dies. We're not talking about your TV at home. We're not talking about your car. We're talking about your brand as a company. And if you can help your customers understand that replacing the display before it looks like some of the displays we had at the beginning of the presentation, they're going to be in a better position. All of the data shows that curb appeal has between a 50 and a 60% impact on walk-up, impulse traffic, people turning in to go to the store. And what we're selling, what our product is all about curb appeal. It is all about that impulse, foot traffic, people that are driving to work and decide to turn in to this convenience store instead of that convenience store. So it needs to be part of a planned upgrade for the customer, not something where they wait till the sign's down. And I think that this has special importance for us all today. We know that the lead time on everything, every hard good imaginable is stretched out. And by the way, if you guys haven't done your Christmas shopping yet, I would advise starting that now, because it is going to take time to get the things that you want. People waiting until November to make orders are going to be unhappy on Christmas morning. So when we know that it takes time to get a replacement unit, we know it takes time to get replacement parts, these customers that are waiting, driving their sign till it dies, are putting themselves at great risk of appearing to be out of business if their sign's not working. So I had a quote earlier from Pablo Picasso. I have another quote here. Any critical capital asset with a non-zero replacement lead time, and we know it's a lot more than zero right now, requires a planned replacement strategy. I couldn't find anybody smart that said that, so I just quoted myself on that. I made that quote up. But it sounds really good, doesn't it? So what I would suggest is that you have serious conversations with your customers now about a budgeting time frame, and then also a shipping lead time, installation time frame, and talk to them seriously about what the impact could be for their business if they're waiting until the bitter end with the display. We're going to transition topics here for just a second. And I would say that this is a concept that I missed last year. I presented some of this information about upgrading displays, and after the session, one of the sign company attendees, and I'm sorry, I do not remember who it was, they actually raised their hand and said, what about demos? Isn't demos a great way to help our customers see what the advantage of a new replacement display would be? And it was like, I couldn't believe that I missed that point in the presentation, so much so that we decided to combine the two concepts this year in the same session. Because we really believe that seeing is believing, and that the ability to pull that demo trailer up to that high school and show them the difference between what their current technology looks like and what a brand new 10 or 8 millimeter Galaxy display could do for them, and the sophistication of the imagery that they could share. It really is huge. So here's the hardball. I understand that we don't do demos on every project, and I would say that you don't need to on every single project. Just the ones you want to win. That's how strongly I believe that demos work. Our data backs that up here at Daktronics. It's why we've invested millions, and that is not an overstatement, millions in our demo fleet, and put them all over the United States and Canada. And I'm personally responsible for all the updates and upgrades, so we're constantly working to update those demo trailers and make sure that it has the most up-to-date technology that we're selling. And that's a big job. There's a lot of nuts and bolts to that, but we believe in it strongly enough to continue to invest in it. I'm gonna turn things over to Jeff, talk a little bit more about our trailers.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. So here's the trailer, right? Benefits of the trailer, maneuverability and detachability. So what I've been doing with it here recently, obviously Taylor touched on the lead times a little bit, how they're pretty far out, and I'm sure Kyle and Cody and the other sales reps here can attest. There might be one of your guys' customers who has a grand opening in 6 weeks, right? And they might have bought signs from you in the past, they get them in 4 weeks, they put them up, so they think, oh, you know, we'll start the process, we got 8 weeks until grand opening, we'll be fine. And then, you know, the dreaded, well, the lead time's past that, so probably not gonna hit it. Use our trailers. I've done that for quite a few people now. Yeah, it's not a sign, but we can park it and leave it there, especially if we're not using it for a week on their grand opening day or something like that. Talk to your local rep and ask them about that, because it can kind of, you know, save your guy's face a little bit, and you know they'll be thrilled that you're able to do that for them. So, you know, DAC salespeople, obviously, we know that you're not living in message centers every day, probably, right? You're doing channel letters, you're doing HR stuff. If you're the owner, you got to make payroll. There's a million things on your plate. So the benefits of us is, you know, we have all the technical knowledge, we have the product knowledge, stuff like that, to kind of help guide your guys' customers into the right product. You don't have to be some LED message center expert. And we're free. It doesn't cost anything for a demo. Just call us, and usually we can pretty much make anything work. One thing I would touch on too, at the demos, I think sometimes the customers kind of shy away from doing it. They might feel like it's some kind of high pressure sales situation. I think if you bring in someone from the manufacturer, it kind of alleviates that burden a little bit on them, so they don't think, oh gosh, they're gonna try to get my check today from me, you know. So I really highly encourage them. So a demo to differentiate. Without a demo, the conversation always turns to price. Yeah, so if you're proposing, you know, a piece of paper that says, you know, Bismarck Sign Company, and you have a 15.85 millimeter and a 10 millimeter on there, and you email it over to them, here's the quote, let me know what you think. Which one do you think they're gonna pick? The 15.85 every time, because it's cheaper, right? And yeah, it does, you know, they're gonna ask, well, does it do images? Yeah, it does images as well. They don't really understand the difference between a 15.85, a 10, all these different millimeter pitches. And if they do, Lynn kind of talked on it, they might have went on the internet and looked up some things. So they don't really understand. I mean, they understand that an 8 millimeter is higher res than a 15.85, but they don't know what that looks like. So I think a demo really helps set that expectation that, hey, look, here's a few different options you can have, and different sizes and stuff like that, and let's talk about what's gonna fit for, you know, your location here. Do we think we are the lowest cost quote they have? So if you're proposing a Daktronics product, and especially if it's some kind of bid situation, and they're, you know, calling up 5 different sign companies, do you think you're the lowest price? Probably not, usually. A demo is a way that, hey, look, I care about you and your business. Let's do a demo. Let's figure out what you actually need or want to achieve your marketing goals and stuff like that. And then justify that price. Be like, hey, look, yeah, we might be $4,000 more bucks, but here's all you're getting from us, you know. We really care about you. I hear all the time with demos, I don't know if you guys hear it too, the end users always say, thanks so much for coming out. Like nobody else ever offered me this. So it does mean something. I think this is back to you.
So to Jeff's point, demos do drive upgrades. And I think that there is that moment where you're talking to a customer and we talked a little bit about budgets earlier. Lynn talked about maybe not starting with a budget number. She was asking, why shouldn't we start with a budget number? One of the things that I was thinking about is, man, budgets are subjective. Who's ever gone to buy a car and said, $30,000, that is my absolute top dollar. I will never spend another penny over $30,000. And then you get on the car lot and you're like, well, 32.5, I mean, that's close. That's almost 30, right? And before you know it, you've blown past that budget that you maybe arbitrarily set. Our customers are no different, right? The budget that they think is so firm, man, this is all I can spend. This is all I've got allocated for this. With the right value proposition, with the right sales proposal, and with the right demo, you can show a customer why that budget is not sufficient. Why do they need to go to a tighter pixel pitch? There are still customers buying monochrome message centers today. That may come as a shock to you, but we still sell them, we still build them. There are people buying red and amber message centers in 2021. Those projects didn't have a demo. I can tell you that right now. Because if you did a demo, they'd be buying RGB. And we are continuing to see a decline, I shouldn't say a decline, we are seeing a shift in purchasing patterns from pixel pitch. And Jeff mentioned, the old monochrome 36 millimeter. We had 46 and 89 when I started at Daktronics. And then we've seen a slow decrease in the coarser pixel pitches. 19 millimeter is honestly declining significantly. It's only for specialized applications now, very long distances. 15.85 is pretty much the minimum. But a demo can get people from a 15.85 to a 10, or from a 10 to an 8. And Jeff has a pro tip on this.
Well, yeah, so which model product are you typically proposing? Usually sign companies, or at least a lot of mine, they'll propose a 15.85 every single time, right? Give me a 15.85 price every time. They have like the matrices memorized in their head. And I always challenge and be like, do you want a 10 millimeter price? I mean, the worst you can do is propose it to them and, we go do a demo and they say no. So I think they upsell, particularly demos upsell on a regular basis. I have a sign company in Central Michigan. At a church, the old owner, he's not the owner anymore, but he still does some sales and stuff. His son's now the president and runs things there. He always proposes a 16 millimeter class. I mean, every single time. He's never doing anything else. We go out to do the demo. He didn't have a 10 millimeter price, but I called him and I'm like, I got a 10 millimeter and I got content ready for it. I'd really like to show it to him. And he goes, no way. Their budget is, 20, whatever it was, 27,000, I think, and we cannot go above that. They told me, no way. They're not buying it if it's that. Okay, no problem. We go out there and we're showing them the 15 and they're kind of looking at it, and it's good. It does a good job. It's doing a good job. And I asked Jay, I'm like, I have the 10 millimeter on the other side. And he's like, okay, let's open it up then. I guess we'll show it to him. We show it to him, boom. They were instantly sold. It didn't even matter. They were like, wow, yeah, okay, we're going to do that one. And he's like, it might be over the budget. And they're like, we'll do fundraising at Easter or something like that. We'll pass around the bucket. We'll figure it out. So, it upsells so much. We had both of our trailers out in a place in Northwest Ohio at another church that was really close to the road, and it was a single face unit. And again, they had a 10 millimeter price. That's what they kind of thought was good. Well, we have, the Ohio rep has an 8 millimeter on his, so I brought it out there and I'm like, you saw the 10 already. Have you thought about going an 8? It's not, it's a single face. I mean, it's not gonna impact your cost all that much. I think, you might as well just go all out is what I would do. So kind of talked it over. They were completely sold. So I think demos upsell all the time. I can't think of too many projects off my head, and I've done a lot of demos where we've done a 15 and a 10, where they end up going with 15. I mean, they always go with the 10. Once they see the 10, you just can't go back. So.
My favorite thing about that story is that it's almost identical to a story that Cody Thompson told me earlier this year about a demo. The only difference was with Cody's demo is that the sign company stood their ground and said, we don't want to show the 10. The customer actually walked around the back of the demo trailer and said, what's this? So Cody turned it around, sold him a 10, didn't you? Sold him an 8. Story topper. Nice.
One other quick thing.
Hang on. We want to hear you. The people online want to hear you.
One other thing to keep in mind is not only upgrading the resolution, but the physical size as well. There's been multiple times where I've quoted like a 40 by 150, which is 2.5 feet by 8 feet long. You go out to the demo, have a piece of content that's designed at that size so you can physically show them, here's what you're looking at getting right now, so they can physically see that. And more times than not, they're going to end up, well, what size is on the trailer? Okay, quote me that too. So you might keep the resolution the same, but you're getting a bigger physical size out of them too. So just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, Kyle, where we'll quote a 3x6 or something like that, right? And they think, oh, a 3x6, you know, that's probably a decent size. And they pull the trailer up that's, you know, with the 15 4.5 by 8, and they're like, wow, even that might be like maybe not quite big enough, you know? So think if we wouldn't have done a demo, and this has happened to me a couple times, and they buy the 3x6, and you put it, you install it, and from day one they are not happy because it's too small. And it's like, well, can you take it back? No, probably not.
Really.
Right. So just to kind of, you know, solidify what they actually want at the demo is really important.
It is difficult for customers to visualize exactly what size a sign's going to look like from a distance, and so the demo really does help with that. More hardball. We do demos for the same reason that customers buy signs. We're talking about a visually intensive product here. Do you want to submit a paper or an emailed proposal to them, maybe with a 2-dimensional picture on it or rendering? Do you think that that is as impactful as pulling a demo trailer onto their property, put their logo on it, their colors, it's in their parking lot? That makes it personal to them, right? You really want to show them what this thing looks like, and that's exactly what our demo trailer can do. And our salesperson is on site there to help you answer questions and hopefully do a little crowd control, right? Hopefully there's more than one person there at the demo, so that helps you to communicate and connect with more members of that possibly decision-making team. Pro tip from Jeff.
Yeah, so what would a message center look like with your customer's content on it? So again, trying to incite that emotional reaction from them, because a quote with a piece of paper, you know, it really isn't going to do that. I can shotgun quotes to sign companies all day, but if I never go see them, they're going to buy from me? Probably not. I think a lot of end users struggle with actually visualizing what content actually looks like on a message center, like something they would put on it. They might drive down the road and see, you know, a Burger King or something with some content on it, but how does that apply to them? You know, I think sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, it kind of works, you know, it's all right. And another thing, how many other sign companies actually offer demos? A lot. I mean, on a lot of projects. I think even in my region, maybe only 50% of the sign companies, and in different big metro areas, maybe just a couple of them. I mean, if you're offering it on a lot of your projects, I think it really sets you apart. They're not just going to look at a number.
We've touched on this, we've alluded to it, but I felt like we needed a slide to really hit it with a sledgehammer. I don't know if you guys have heard this quote before, but I love it. People buy an emotion and justify with logic. And if you really do a little soul searching, you can probably think of an experience personally where you have done that. Or maybe you fooled yourself so well that you thought you were buying on logic. But we don't. We are all swayed by emotional advertising, emotional marketing, and what do we want? We want stuff, right? We have desires, and if you can capitalize on that with your customers and show them how a brighter, tighter, more colorful display can help them achieve their goals as an organization, then you're going to win that project. So again, we really want to have this in-person experience with the customer so that they can see it. But, like Jeff said, 50% of the sign companies do demos regularly. The other 50% don't. There's got to be some reason for it, right? Why don't we do a demo on every project? Takes time, right? There's scheduling, right? Jeff has a big territory. Tom talked about where he's working. He's got sign companies that he's serving in that region. And sometimes, what would you say is the average lead time to be able to get a demo set up?
I always tell them if you can give me at least a week heads up, I can try to make it happen on one of the days of that following week. I usually try to keep one day open for anything that pops up last second. So just a week or two's usually plenty for me. I really, it takes my work, scheduling is a pain. I think I would actually turn that on its head and be like, I think it's actually a little bit less work, because what's going to end up happening, I think a lot of the times, especially, it's no problem for me. I just work up another quote and can send it to you. But on your guys' end, you send them this quote, they come back and say, no, we want to go smaller. Okay, so now you got to redo the rendering you already have for them. That takes, at least in my cases with some sign companies, forever. They're backed up with graphic designers who can't find any. So they got to put it back in the queue to get re-rendered, put a whole new proposal together and send it to them. How long does that take? What if they do that 2 or 3 times? I mean, if you just set up a demo that takes, maybe it's a half hour away from the shop, takes a couple hours, well, actually, I would say it actually takes less time to just go do the demo sometimes than it does to re-render and re-quote everything every time they want a revision. So,
if I had to put a nutshell on that, I would say it's about compressing the sales cycle, right? And I think, too, a demo is an example of a next steps activity, right? Lynn says always have a next steps. So let's say you do submit a proposal. Let's say you do submit a quote. Now what? Well, call me if you're interested. That's kind of a little flat, right? I just sent you the quote. I'd really like to see you again. I'd like to see your property, see the space again. I've got my regional salesperson from Daktronics, Jeff Good. He's got a terrific looking demo trailer. Let's schedule a demo at your facility. You can invite some members from your team, and let's take a look at what this would look like on your property. So it's about the flywheel, right? It's continuing to move that sales process forward and hopefully compressing it if possible. So the other thing that we hear is, yeah, we sold a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch down the street. I can just tell them to drive by the Arby's if they want to see another sign. That one's pretty similar to the one I'm quoting. Man, that's not very personable. That is not the same as bringing a demo unit, a Daktronics employee, to your customer's location, showing them their logo on a display, and showing them what it would look like on their property. So it makes a big difference. A little bit of closing here. I love this quote. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And Daktronics, those of us here at Daktronics, we want to go far together with you guys. We want to have a partnership and close sales together. And we believe that demos is one of the most powerful tools at our disposal to help you guys do that, and to help you guys upgrade all of those older displays that are out there in the field. So to recap, we really think that upgrading existing equipment out in the field is better for everybody. It's better for your customer, it's better for their brand image at their store, it's better for our sign companies, because the older displays may take more time to service and support, and maybe a burden on some of our service organizations. And it's better for Daktronics because we are also able to move things forward with more technology. Customers that see newer, brighter, tighter signs in their community, you sell one sign, it becomes easier to sell 2. You sell 2 signs, it becomes easier to sell 10. So you're moving that flywheel forward by getting these older signs replaced. Take action. Have a meeting. Invite your service people. Invite Jeff or your Jeff to the meeting. I would suggest that this meeting should be regular. It shouldn't be a one and done, maybe quarterly. Again, having that electronic list of your targets, assigning them out to specific salespeople, and then meeting again in a quarter to hold people accountable and say, hey, how'd it go? How'd it go with Pacific Northwest Bank? Were you guys able to get a meeting? Did you schedule a demo? Use demos. And then last, I would say that when it comes to your customers' different personality types, you need to be skilled in both. You need to be able to talk about the sizzle. You need to be able to talk about the visual factors that make the newer technology more effective. But you also need to be prepared for the customers that are more pragmatic, and you need to be able to talk to them about the risk that they're running into by keeping an older display around their property, and help them understand why it would be better to replace it. We're going to take questions here quick, and we did compress the session just a little bit because I want to make time for our good friend James from Lacrosse Sign is going to address the group for a few minutes. His idea, we didn't put him up to it at all. He asked if he could chat with you all a little bit. But first I want to take some questions from the audience. And if we have the catch box for anybody that has questions.
I guess I got a question or a comment first. Daktronics, we were one of the first ones to have demo displays on trailers to show people. But today we're no longer the only company with demo displays. Getting in front of these customers with our displays gives us the first opportunity to educate our customers and maybe prevent other sign companies, other manufacturers from doing demos. So I'll always keep that in mind as well.
Thanks, Cody. John, box coming your way. Thank you guys for waiting for the boxes. By the way, we've got virtual attendees that are online, and we want to make sure that they are hearing your guys' questions and comments. Pat, go ahead.
I agree with your comment, but gosh, it's fun to demo against Watchfire and somebody else.
We call that a shootout. I don't know if you've heard that term before. Yep. We win shootouts, so we do love shootouts. John Daniel.
Yeah. So yesterday we talked a lot about interior. Is it necessary, or do you have a long-term vision regarding interior demos?
That is a great question, John. The story that I shared yesterday with the lacrosse project at Wilderness Casino included a demo. Did you guys hear about the demo? Did you guys hear that in the story? Pfizer Forum. So in that particular case, for some of our products, it is more effective to take a customer to a location. Right now, when it comes to indoor product, we have a growing installation base out there of product that can be demoed in person. Some of our larger customers, like sports venues, are some of the first to adopt some of these interior digital engagement applications. And so seeing an opportunity in your local area, your local Daktronics salesperson will know where the best looking indoor product is in your area and can help facilitate that. But John, I think that there is a note in there for me that we have been talking about, is that we need to make some of the indoor product available to our sales staff as well. We've got a well-articulated, outdoor LED product demo fleet out there, but we're pretty limited right now in the indoor product. There's some challenges there. Jim alluded to all of the pixel pitches that we have, so there's a lot there. There's a lot of complexity. The product is also not nearly as rugged as our Daktronics Galaxy units are, so we can't be bouncing those down the highway on a demo trailer. So there's more conversations to come on that, but I agree that seeing is believing doesn't stop outdoors. It is equally applicable to the indoor product as well.
And to piggyback off what you just said, Taylor, I would encourage you, if you have a customer that's looking for indoor stuff, bring them here. Bring them to the product showcase. It's right there, and we can put their content on all those boards, and they can figure out which one might be a good fit for them.
Depending on the size of the project, definitely recommend it. We have a saying. I'm full of sayings. If they fly here, they buy here. It's almost without exception. No one comes here and sees the facility, sees what we do, and sees the real reliability lab without lying.
Yep.
Thank you, John.